so grateful you're here. So glad you're here.
So excited to hear about your week, Clint. I know you've had an incredible week. We talked about it last weekend on our spiritual call, and how you've got some exciting news.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So on May 4th, just on Monday, was when we finally announced, after 10 years, we announced the launch date. So this book will be launched on June 1st. So not very long from now, people will be able to buy this on Amazon or all over different places. So it's really exciting. And it was really fun. On that day, we had a series of live online events, kind of like we're doing now. We had some famous Bollywood stars join from olden times and modern times, famous director that's like a Steven Spielberg of India. We had Jack and Inga Canfield on, and what they said was like just amazing, so beautiful. And also Patty Aubrey, who's the president of Jack's companies for many years. I should send you those videos. Actually, I should have queued them up because they're so inspiring to hear what they were sharing. But next time maybe. And then we released a book trailer video. It's 2.5 minutes long, and it's fun. It's really fun. So a lot of activity, lots of stuff happening. And but you know, it's interesting because this Hack Mankind meeting, I look forward to being here with you, and I look forward to the questions that come. Somehow it nourishes me. And in a world right now where I have to kind of limit what I'm doing and focus on certain things that are going to move things forward, I had to decide what to keep and what to leave. And I wanted to keep being with you all. So this is it's my, I don't know, it's a special gift to myself to be with you. So.
Oh, thank you so much, Clint. And we love having you. I personally do. And I know that your videos and your recordings are always a huge success because you bring so much value and joy and knowledge to these calls and presence. So thank you so much for being here. I know you're very busy with your book launch. And you mentioned 10 years. It took 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years. It's a long time. 10 years. Some babies, they come out in 9 months, and some take 10 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process, like how that all evolved?
Yeah, so
because it sounds like a spiritual journey in itself.
Yeah, it is. It's such a thing. You know, actually, I met with this author, famous author from the Middle East, and he said this comment that I thought was helpful. He says, most authors, when they're writing a book, it's because they're trying to figure out something inside of themselves. And so that's why they end up writing a book, is to help answer that question for themselves. And I think, you know, obviously the subtitle of this book is A Western Skeptic, an Eastern Master in Life's Greatest Secrets. So, you know, I was that skeptic. And there was so much that I had to bridge in my own mind and my own heart to even make sense of the stuff that I was seeing that this master healer, Dr. Naram, could do. And it was such a journey that I kept a really good journal for a lot of it. I documented so much on video, on audio, audio recordings. And so I compiled a lot of stuff. And then when I actually got to writing the book, the first version of the book was like 800 pages long. I was like, who's going to read that? So one person said, you know what you should do is cut it in half. I did. I cut it in half. Then that person read it again. She's like, you should actually cut it in half again. So then I cut it in half again. Then it was 200 pages. The nice thing is then it already has the next couple books in line. But what really I feel like the spiritual journey capturing it is, what is it that people would need most right now in their lives, especially in the context of what's happening on planet Earth? You know, people are afraid, have insecurity, uncertainty like never before. So many people, the first time their mortgage is going late or they're not being able to pay their rent, you go out into the street or the grocery store, there's this unknown enemy. You don't know who is going to physically do harm to you or someone you love. And on the other hand, there's this healer who, you know, we're afraid to touch each other, even breathe on each other. He would touch your pulse and understand what was happening in your body, mind, and emotions. And would tell you, you don't tell anything to him. And then, you know, through touch, help you heal. And what I'm excited about is now when the world is either going to crystallize into more fear and insecurity, feeling unsafe, or they have an opportunity to open up to a new possibility. And through this book, we can touch them, touch their heart, and touch their lives. And, you know, on the last call, I talked about how moved, overwhelmed I was. One person saw one of the calls we did and says, I feel it's my calling to help with the translation. Within 48 hours, there was already people that had volunteered to sign up in like 15, 20 languages. Now it's 45 people are translating this book currently into 27 languages. And I'm like, whoa, that's like even beyond what I didn't even imagine that would happen. And it's happening before the book is even published. So that tells me that there's, like, talk about spiritual journey and just trusting the flow. It's like, wow, this message is wanted right now, needed right now. And I'm so grateful to see people show up. One morning I woke up, actually, this was 2 or 3 mornings ago. I was on the phone with my mom and I told her, I was like, Mom, I woke up this morning and I realized I'm working with angels. You know, I am. Like physical angels that I can see. And I'm like, these people are angels. Jenny, the one who volunteered to orchestrate that translation, put yourself in her shoes. So she just, in her heart, she says, I'm going to contact this Dr. Clint G. Rogers and tell him about it. 48 hours later, and now 1 week later, she's coordinating a team of 45 people translating in 27 languages. Like, what's happening? And she's an angel. And I was on a call with those translators this week, and I got moved to like almost tears. They're talking about, I was asking them, what language are you translating in? Japanese. What language are you translating in? Spanish. What language are you translating in? French. What language are you? Dutch, German. And one person was translating into Basque. And at that moment, I had a sense of like all the people who can speak Basque and maybe don't speak other languages, having a chance to be opened up to this world in which there's possibilities they maybe never even imagined. And I kind of got overwhelmed by like the impact of that. And these 27 languages, people having this hope breathed into their life, not only hope, but practical solutions for some of the problems they thought maybe there was no solution for. And then wisdom integrated and questions that are asked them that even if you just answer the questions at the end of every chapter can totally change your life. You know, so I've been this week just swimming in it, thinking, you know, Jenny's an angel. I talked about that guy that showed up when my computer cord busted. And that guy's been such an angel, Jonathan. Oh my goodness, such an angel. He's so multi-talented. And when I say thank you, he's like, no, I want to thank you because I was praying to do something meaningful with my life. And everything I'm giving him, I'm just waking up in the morning, and it's done better than I could have ever expected. So I'm like, this guy's an angel. And I'm looking at the people who are doing so many aspects of everything. And then I'm like, knowing there was actually one time this week, someone said to me, Clint, it's literally a miracle that this book is coming out, because there's lots of forces on the planet Earth that wouldn't want this kind of a message to get out. I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, but there's so many forces we don't even see that want it to get out now, you know, and they're actually kind of pushing the flow of this whole thing forward and orchestrating it better than I could have. If I had like some master plan in my mind, which I don't, it would not be as good as what's actually happening when I'm surrendering to allow it to unfold in the way that it just feels like it's guided, you know? So when I woke up, I was like, it wasn't just like a cute saying, I'm working with angels. It was like dawning on me, the realization that, whoa, I'm working with angels. Like, I'm listening to my heart. I'm guided by love, and I'm like connecting with other people that are as well. And they understand when they're showing up, it's for some purpose that's greater than any of us individually. You know, so on that all those levels, it's like, wow, this is like, you know, you had mentioned the spiritual journey of it. So imagine 10 years of this, although the early years, there was a lot more resistance in me, you know, like I'd have experiences like this happen, but I wouldn't trust them, or I doubt them, or I think it can't be real, and this isn't reality, you know. But now when I see like miracle after miracle after miracle, I'm like, wow, actually I get worried if I don't see miracles now, you know. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So that's just a little synopsis of this last week. 10-year journey would take a lot longer to explain. And I'm curious what happened to you this week, Jessica. What
Oh my
cool
goodness, so
insights or
much
distinctions?
a lot has happened. For those who know, I've been on the road and I'm finally in Florida. in a hotel now, trying to find my more permanent place. But it's been an exciting time. I do have some questions coming in, Clint. I want to make sure we acknowledge. And then you mentioned also something that at the beginning it was hard for you to see the miracles, that it was all a journey to actually start seeing them. And so what would you recommend to people? Like, what would you tell the you of 10 years ago now? What would be your advice?
Wow, such a good question. Yeah, because my mind was, I thought I was open, but I wasn't. I would discount stuff so easy. And I'd see something amazing and I'd make some excuse why it didn't apply or why there was some trick behind it or something, you know. I don't know. What advice? That's such a good question.
Yeah,
I'd
like how
say
do
is
you
the
open up
advice
your
the
mind?
advice I would
That's
give,
one of the
I'd say
questions.
to open up your mind, Clint, of 10 years ago, read this book. You know, that's what I would say, honestly, because this book, it takes you on that journey. It meets people right where I was, you know, where so many people are. And I say, bring your skeptic. You know, all of us have it and it's healthy, actually. I think maybe I mentioned this, but I was with Deepak Chopra. Again, this was such a guided meeting. I realized, I thought, you know what? I really should let Deepak Chopra know I wrote this. And as soon as I put that intention in my heart, like that afternoon, one of my friends called me and said, hey, I'm with Deepak Chopra right now. I was like, oh my goodness. And then he scheduled it for me to be at a book launch that he was doing in San Diego, like within 2 days. So within 2 days, I was sitting backstage with Deepak Chopra and talking about certain things about synchronicities in our lives and knowing that that was a huge synchronicity. And I asked him, I said, I recorded a little video, I said, what would you say to a skeptic? And he's like, no, skepticism is good, you know, but cynicism is not good. But he said, this is what he said. He's like, what I recommend is actually not just that you question things like this, things like miracles. He says, but I recommend you question everything in your life. Be skeptical of everything. You know, just take it a few steps back and why do you actually believe what you believe in the first place? And actually look at that more skeptically. You know, question it all. And I thought that was really, really good advice. I asked a similar question when I was with Joe Dispenza about a month and a half ago. He had a really good advice or good take on it as well, you know, because he really wants to find evidence for things. I mean, he's doing stuff on such a broad level, but at the same time, taking scientific instrument, you know, like testing people's brain waves and showing that when you actually do these kind of meditations, what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally, even with physical healing of crazy stuff, amount of tumors in people's bodies reversing or decreasing, or measuring this kind of stuff, you know, or diseases that Western medicine doesn't have a cure for yet. He's actually showing it and has a great team of people that are looking at it from all kinds of angles. But really, honestly, I feel like when you read this book, it's an entryway into a different possibility inside of yourself and actually helps you fall more in love with yourself and more in love with life in such a way you can be open to some more of the magic that is around you in this moment. You just aren't paying attention to it or aren't aware of it all the time. Like, this is my advice to myself. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Beautiful. And so we have a question on our back end from one of our attendees and saying, like, you know, how would you help a skeptic start their journey?
Yeah, good. Are you ever skeptical, Jessica, of stuff?
Yes.
Yeah,
I wish I could say no, but
yeah, I mean, we hear so much stuff, and how do you know what to believe? And some people are so confident when they're speaking, and it sounds so out there, you know, and we don't have our own experience of it. So all we can do is, do I trust what this person is saying that sounds really crazy to me right now, or do I trust my current experience? And most of the time, you're going to go with your experience. The thing is, my experience 10 years ago was based on so many filters and perceptions that I had been raised in or trained in me that didn't allow for me to see other realities that were just as real. And they can coexist perfectly well, but it's hard to see them when you're coming from a certain lens, certain viewpoint, you know? So I would just say, if you're a skeptic, great, bring your skeptic. Bring it. Bring your skeptic and read this book. That's my skeptic challenge to you. Bring your skeptic, read this book, and see what happens. Actually, one of the people that I just share his story real briefly. I don't remember. Did I talk about, I had kind of a mischievous goal at the beginning of when I was getting close to publishing it. Did I tell you about this? Where I had a kind of a desire that, you know, it's so funny, this is a call about spirituality, but I wanted it so people would see this book on their neighbor's like bookshelf or the table. I told you about this?
And steal it.
Yeah, I wanted them to steal it. I don't
And
really
it's actually happened.
Yeah, and it's happening. And one of the stories maybe I shared with you is about a guy that stole it, and he said he's an engineer. He hasn't read a book since college. Didn't believe in this kind of stuff, but just something happened where it unlocked different parts of his mind and heart. So, but by the end, I'm like, but why do you steal it? He's like, you know, I know I should give it back to my friend, but I'm never going to. And then I was like, but why not? He's like, because now I want to read my wife a chapter every night until she believes like I do. I was like, wow, that's so powerful, you know? And this is in a very, I'm not saying that will work for every single person, but I think if your heart is drawn to it, this book is written actually for you. It's not written for me or for Dr. Naram or anyone. It's written for you because of what's possible in your life. When you allow your heart to be open to something else that maybe you just didn't know existed, it's kind of like, Jessica, you know, your favorite movie or your favorite food. Before you had that food or before you saw that movie, you didn't know it was your favorite. You didn't even know it existed, you know? So now I feel like that kind of energy where, holy smokes, I want to share this, like you have chocolate ice cream or something for the first time. And you're like, you got to taste this, Jessica. This is crazy good. You got to try it, you know? And then how you could be skeptical. You could say, I don't like ice. Cream, oh, that sounds so fat. Whatever, you know, you think, but then you have your own experience and then you're like, oh, thank you, Clint, for telling me about this thing, you know? So that's how I feel right now. I'm like a really excited conveyor belt of something that for a lot of people on planet Earth, they're about to discover something in themselves that they didn't know was there before, and something on the planet that can help them in every aspect of their lives.
So one of the things you mentioned where you're talking about it, and so it took 10 years to birth this baby. And for some, it might be 9 months, and for some, it's 10 years. So along that path, along that spiritual journey, or whatever you want to call it, that journey, what was the most challenging part? That's one of the questions we have coming in. What was your most challenging part of that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jessica. And whoever asked it, who asked it? I want to say their name too, if possible. I don't know if they have.
It's an anonymous. We have a bunch of anonymous questions coming in, so I'm not quite sure. But we have a ton of people watching us also on Facebook. We have Connie, Diana, Sonia. Hi, Nani is here too. Amrutha is here too. So we have a bunch of people. So, but I don't know who asked the question.
No problem. I'm so glad you're asking questions, and I love all of you on this call. Thank you for joining. The hardest part for me, wow. There's been a lot of difficult parts, you know. I think for me, it's unwinding conception. Like, it's like one of the most difficult things to change is our identity, like how we think we are. Like, we think we are a name and certain set of characteristics and qualities, and we think there's a certain set of things that are possible. And I came into this experience thinking I was someone, a particular someone with a certain set of characteristics and attributes and beliefs and, you know, beliefs about myself. And that was a big shift. It took a long time, and I'm so glad that Dr. Ram let me stick around long enough to pop some of that stuff open. Because when some of that broke open and I saw there was a whole different possibility than I ever imagined, like, it was like, it's like Earth, you think the Earth is flat and then you realize it's round. Like that kind of a, whoa, you know, like everything in my life like there was ripple effects and everything kind of had to rearrange around, this is like a totally different identity about who am I and who are we and what is life, you know? And so that was a really difficult and magical at the same time. I mean, what popped me in that space was, I don't know if you want me to tell you the story right now, but yeah, I think that's the most difficult thing. We think we are something. I think one of the most difficult things for any of us to change is our identity. And we have so much emotional energy and everything around it that it's a really tricky thing to change.
Were you scared? That's one of the follow-up questions that Diana's giving us. Were you scared during that time?
Yeah, I was scared. Some part of me was afraid. It's like a death sometimes. So it's like a certain thing you thought you were in a certain world you thought you knew. It's like letting it go, you know? And there's some parts of that that are like difficult because there's attachments, but at the same time there's like a new birth of a new you with new possibilities and a lot of uncertainty traveling that road and walking it, but so much, so worth it, you know? Like if I don't know what I would have done if I didn't take that path, you know? Like I'm not sure how my life or so many other people's lives would be different as a result. I mean, even just from the TEDx talk alone, like, I can't believe millions of people have watched it. And I've met thousands and thousands of them. And they say, you've changed my, I would have done it for one person. I would have done that for one person. If I changed one person's life, I would say that the whole journey is worth it. But to meet thousands of people from all over the world, countries I never even heard of, that have seen it and say, you changed my life. I mean, that's so beautiful. And I know something similar, I can't say I know, but I have a sense that something similar is going to happen with this book. And I feel like, thank you, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for putting us in the exact situations we need to get whatever experiences so we can serve in the ways that we need to. One thing I love about this miracle dream team of so many people, hundreds of people gathering around the launch of this book, is I'm not telling them what to do. They're listening to their heart and being guided, you know? And that's why it's turning out so good. It's a totally different model of being on this planet. I'm not like I even told them on the last call, I'm clear, I'm not the leader. I'm following, you know, I'm dancing with what comes and we get to see. And I'm making each decision based on, is this going to be good for humanity ultimately? And then whatever's the best insight I have from my heart. And then also I asked this question that I told you last time. What if I only had 6 months left to live, Jessica? What would I do? It gives such clarity. Some things matter and some things don't, you know? Yeah, so was I scared? Yeah. Am I scared now? Sometimes it comes. Yeah, and I think, oh man, this is one thing I kept thinking recently. I'm like, I don't fit anywhere anymore. Like, I don't fit. And then one person told me this often happens when you're born on the earth to create a new reality where you do fit, you know, and other people can come. And one thing I love is so many of the people who are part of this dream team, they're like, I finally feel like I have a place where I belong, you know, their heart is waking up. One woman that's so beautiful. She said, for most of my life, I had closed down and I just spent time with animals because they're safer. She's like, but finally this book and this team, it's like my heart can come out to play again. And it was so beautiful. And she says, when this book is released, she's like, it's going to be like an atomic bomb of love going off on the planet. And so even when I think to myself, oh, I don't fit anywhere, I can only think that's also a blessing, because what can we create together that's a healthier, happier place for other people to join and be a part of as well.
Wow, beautiful. And I when you're talking, it resonates. I hear at maybe different levels, but I hear this from so many people right now during COVID, and that are going through transformation and have so much uncertainty like you had, and having to let go of attachment. Like you were asking me about this week. This week has been an interesting week for me, where I know it's the right decision to make to leave New York, where I've have my friends. I've built a kind of a foundation. I had work, and like so many out in the world, it's a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed like this. and having to kind of, I feel like, uprooted, which means I can set roots wherever or not, or there's so much possibility. It's so much excitement. And at the same time, it can be scary. It can be scary and letting go of attachments. It's an interesting journey. So thank you so much for sharing that. And if you would have to give one hack, one advice, one thing to focus on if we're going through that at this moment, what would that be?
Yeah, you know, it triggered as you're talking. Like even in the introduction of the book, I think inevitably in life, we're going to come to moments where we realize that whatever we know and whatever we thought we were isn't enough. I call them desperation, like a desperation point. So for me, that was when my dad told me he thought he only had one week left to live. Like it was a desperation point. He already was visiting 4 very highly qualified medical doctors. So then what do I do? You know, it's like, I think life brings all of us to those points. They're decision points. And you can either give up or you can reach for a power higher than you. And that's why I think you ask for help. Even if you don't believe in a God, you can just speak to, actually, you can even ask God, okay, you know, this was a fun story about my dad. His first prayer was simply, God, are you there? And he just had this kind of a sense. He said, either God isn't there, and so he won't tell me, and then it doesn't matter, or he's there and he doesn't tell me, and so I don't care. You know, it doesn't matter to him enough to tell me that he's there. So that was his simple prayer. It was just so simple. It was like, God, are you there? And yeah, I think a big part of who I am is because he asked that question, you know? And I think really anyone that asks that question or goes into silence, you're going to discover there's a higher power, whatever you want to call it, that you can tap into for wisdom that's beyond yours and guidance that's beyond you. And see that even the most difficult, challenging moments in your life are gifts. It sounds so hard to believe that in the moment that you're experiencing it. But I think everyone on this call has things in their life where, in retrospect, you know, they say hindsight is 20/20. Retrospect, you're like, oh, my life is better because of that thing. And so life is happening, you know, there's the saying that many people say, well, life is happening for you, not to you. And in the moment, it doesn't seem like that, where you have that desperation point or your whole world is falling apart around you. I would just ask, you know, it's like the best time to pray, you know, and just ask for help. Reach out to people you love as well that see you probably better than you see yourself in those moments. It can help you to see yourself in that way as well. Actually, on this call, you read off some of the names, but one of the names of someone who's helped me is Amruta. And she, you know, she saw my TEDx talk. She communicated with me through Facebook, and then came to one of the clinics where Dr. Ram was there, and she's just like inspired me her whole journey. I don't know, I didn't ask her permission to share her story in advance, so I feel a little bit nervous sharing it right now, but in essence, like, she didn't want to connect with the world, you know, so even when she was connecting with me at first, it was through a different account. But then she got so much confidence and so much love in herself. She posted a picture of herself for the first time on Facebook and said, you know, I love myself now before the problem has gone away. And I realized that I can look, this is like, when I saw her post and I saw it, just actually helped me love myself more, you know? So she says that I helped her, but in reality, she's helped me so much. And so many times she'll send me the right message at the right time, just saying, Clint, who you are is so needed right now. And all you have to do is just be yourself, you know, or things like this, or quotes or insights. She's actually been one of the ones I gave her the book when she came. This was only a few months ago. Every time she reads it, she says that a miracle happens physically in her life. Like whatever's that physical challenge that she was facing with, after she reads it, she looks in the mirror and she sees that problem is reduced. She's done this 2-3 times, and every time it surprises her. She's like, what is it that's happening, Clint? What magic spell was put on this book that when I'm in service of this message, I see this deep healing happen inside of me? And I actually, it's not just Amruta either, but it's happened to another reviewer from Germany, another one from Slovakia. They read it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. They think they're going to get bored, but each time they read it, it pulls them in, unlocks certain things that need to be healed, brings it out, and then they find this deep experience. So, yeah, so in that moment that you're in, I think you can trust your guidance. Ask for help. And I think the moment you guys talk about angels, my sister actually shared this with me. She's like, angels don't impede on your free agency. They're not going to come and force help on you. But they're right there, right when you ask for it. And so if you ask for help, they're anxious to give that help for you and to you. They're just waiting for you to ask. There's a famous scripture in almost every religion: ask and you shall receive. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. All you have to do oftentimes is just ask. Say, I don't know what to do anymore. Please guide me. And then be surprised and have your heart and your mind open to whatever is that guidance that comes. Yeah, that's my advice.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Amrita did say you can share, Clint. So that's the green light. I just didn't want to interrupt. And she also had a question. So thank you so much for being here, Amrita. So great. And I will look for that picture so I can put a visual to the name. One of her questions is, what are some of the mind-boggling spiritual things that you learned from Dr. Naram that felt so unbelievable to you?
Yeah, such a good question, Amrita. So since she gave permission to tell her story, this is one of them actually. So when she was in school and finishing high school and getting ready to go to college, and like in India, there's something actually all throughout the world, but it's very noticeable. If your skin is darker, you start to get white spots on your skin, like white patches, and they grow and grow and grow. It's called vitiligo. And so in that kind of a situation, like many people who struggle with vitiligo, they're worried about people rejecting them, people looking at them like they have some like disease that you can't touch them or communicate. And then like, will I ever get married? You know, will I ever have friends again? Like all these kind of questions come up. And so she didn't want to communicate with me even through her account. So she was just going through another account. And when I finally realized it was her, my heart just melted with this beautiful person that was on this journey. And so she actually says, I mean, in Western medicine, there is no cure for vitiligo. There isn't. It doesn't exist. But I've seen Dr. Ram time and time again help people. It's not a quick fix. But after a couple of years, people, their white spots recolor. And then they don't have this problem anymore. And so that's why when she started reading this book, there's actually a couple of stories in here about people with this situation. One of them, his name is Samir. And Samir is a lawyer in Boston I interviewed. And he said, you know, all his life he had this conflict. So we have conflicts in ourselves. He's from India, but he didn't really respect his parents' culture. You know, like he's American, you know, and so there's this conflict. And he said going through this experience gave him, for the first time, respect for his own culture that he never would have had. Because there was a solution that existed in this ancient science that you cannot find in the best hospitals or medical universities of Boston, you know? And so Amrita read that story, read the whole book, and she's like, you know, I'm going to read it again, chapter by chapter, give you feedback. Read it again, and she looked in the mirror, and some of the white spots had started coloring in again. And then about a month later, when she read the book again, I said, can you read the book? And I want some more quotes from Indian sages and scholars, and I want you to think about additional questions I can ask at the end of the chapter. So she read the book again, and she looked in it, and the message she sent was so fun. She's like, I don't know what just happened, but some of the spots are totally colored in now. She's like, what's happening? You know, and even for me, it says I'm the author of this book, but I feel like it was like I'm a character in it, and I'm watching the miracles happen, you know? And so when she posted that picture saying, even before I'm healed, I know I'm worthy of love. Like that struck so much to my heart. And I said, yes, you are. And somehow I think when we can love other people in this way, it gives us some room to love ourselves more. I'm sure Amruta, when she sees me, she doesn't think I have any challenges or self-insecurities or doubts. But really I do. You know, I still have doubts and I still struggle to figure out where I belong. And so when I see her love herself, it helps me love myself more. So it's like, like my friend that said, oh, it's like an atomic bomb of love. It's like keeps coming back. We keep sharing this love with each other, and I think it's going to grow into a movement, silent revolution of people that can make a different choice about how we live, how we love. So now your question, Amruta, like there's a lot of stuff. And honestly, some stuff I can't even tell you on this call, and I won't tell you on this call, but I maybe will tell you at some point, because it's like, yeah, and then some stuff you can't even put in words. Like it's beyond mind. Like I could try and put language to it. This is actually why Dr. Ram sent me for silence. Because he says, I could tell you about the secrets, but you wouldn't get it. You just try and make sense of it with your mind. But a lot of it is beyond mind. That's why it's mind boggling. It's because the mind can't kind of grasp it. Like it's beyond that. And so there has to be kind of like a relaxing of that, like mind thinking it's in charge of figuring everything out. And then something can land in your heart and your whole perspective on everything changes. And so, yeah, one of those, I'll just give you one example, is that in the silence, just the fact I wasn't going to a lecture, I wasn't reading a book, I wasn't taking a course, I wasn't going to a seminar, just purely through silence, I learned who I was. And I learned who God was connected inside of me. Like I saw that and I knew it. And it's not stuff you can put in words, but I think it's inevitable for anyone that does that long enough. Be still and you will know God. Like it's inevitable. So that's one of the things. And then also, I think also along those lines, just how interconnected we all are. Like really how interconnected we are. Every single religion on the planet that I know of has some kind of saying, like the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And more I see that is actually, if you do unto others, you actually are doing to yourself. Like we're more connected than we realize. And so, yeah, so that's another thing. But again, it's words right now, but until you have an experience of it, it's a different thing. But it's mind-boggling when it happens, because your identity goes, what? Who am I? What is it me? Yeah. Great question.
Wow. Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. We have Nita who's going, wow, on our comments. A ton of our attendees on the backstage area as well. Loving today's content. So thank you so much, Clint. I really appreciate you being here with us. One of the things you mentioned was that Dr. Naram sent you to silence. And the first question is like, oh, how long were you in silence? And then also it's like, if somebody wants to do that, do they just sit at home in silence and just stay home? Or is it best to go somewhere to be in silence?
Such a good question. Yeah, every year I go for silence. Dr. Ram sent me for 10 days, a week and 10 days. So, it's amazing. It builds on each other. I think people that only do it for 3 or 4 days, it's like you did the work without the paycheck, So stay in it long enough, because it exponentially gets better every day. Like I'm excited because finally when this book is published, I'm going, not immediately after, but I have as my treat to myself, I am going to go for a month of silence. And I'm excited to see what happens. I'm curious. It's my experiment. But you can go many places, and many places it's free. They give you accommodation for free. The food is free. It's delicious. All you have to do is just sign up and register. And then at the end, if you benefit, you can donate. And if you don't benefit, you don't donate. It's done so purely. And there's lots of different traditions that do it too. But if you go to a website called dhamma.org, DHAMMA.org, you can see locations all over the US, all over the world.
Oh, I'm not sure if I got disconnected or if you did, Clint. I'm going to see if I can reset real quick. It looks like we have um, disconnected. Hi, Diana. Can you hear both of us? Or, oh, looks like we lost Clint. He'll try and reconnect. What a beautiful, beautiful share. And I was actually writing down Dhamma, and I've heard of that. You know, I've done like 10 days of so I'll just share a little bit my experience before we get Clint to join us back. And I've done 10 days. It was part of a program, so it wasn't just silence. So but it was silence, and then we did the exercise, totally cut off from the world, and just that was already huge, transformational. So I'm that is one thing. It's on one of it's my bucket list to go and do the whole retreat. And I'd love to hear from you watching live and tuning in. Have you done a silence retreat ever? How was it for you? And do you recommend it? I'd love to hear your experience until we get Clint to join back on. I just want to go back into the certain things that he touched on, because incredible life hacks. I mean, just the fact that he says, like, one of the questions that we had from our attendees, one of our VIPs backstage, was, do you get afraid? And he was like, yeah, I get, sometimes I'm afraid. Hi, welcome
Hey,
back.
we're talking.
Oh, there you go.
We're talking about silence, and then I went into silence.
That's perfect. we excuse me. I just explained a bit of my, sorry, I swallowed sideways. I breathed in.
Yeah.
Trying to talk too fast. About how I had an experience similar, but it wasn't total silence. So it's on my bucket list. On my bucket list. So could you tell us what is that? It's DHA DMA that you were saying?
No, DHAMMA, Dhamma.org. So they have Vipassana, 10-day Vipassana courses, and it's great, actually. There's people that can support you the whole way. They have centers all over. It's free. And then there's other ones, too, that people can enroll in. There's a monastery in Thailand I went to. It was a great one. There's different ways you can do it. I just encourage you to do it. Yeah, at first it's difficult for, I think, most people, but it's so worth it. So worth it. If there's like one thing I recommend to people to do, no matter what is happening in their life, I say, go do this thing, because you don't even know who you are. They say, but I got a job. I was like, but you don't even like your job. They said, but I have this relationship. I was like, but you don't even like, you're struggling in your relationship. They say, but I have kids. I'm like, but wouldn't you want to be a better parent? Like, what if the whole rest of your parenting was better because you did this one thing now? So according to me, there's no good excuse. There's only benefits that can come from it. And especially, you know, the whole world is paused in a way, but it's a different quality when you intentionally choose to go there. And yeah, just such breakthrough things. I sent one friend, health challenge that he had his whole life just from being in the silence was resolved, because sometimes health challenges come because we're not facing something emotionally. And even in the book, Dr. Ram says, you know, 80% of the health challenges we have come because of some kind of childhood trauma. But it shows up inside of us physically. And I think in the silence, sometimes those just get resolved because you see what's real. And then that just disappears. And then the pain disappears with it. That happened. One of my friends that struggled with addiction for a lot of his life, all of a sudden the addiction went away. I mean, so many cool things happen. Yeah, so it's exciting.
Wow. And would you recommend that we go to a place to go be in silence, or can we just do it at home? Can we just prepare, like have a bunch of groceries and just make our own food and be in silence on our own? Or do you recommend it's actually much better to go somewhere?
I think you'll benefit however you do it, but at home, usually you have so many distractions. You got so many distractions. Someone's going to come over, the phone's going to ring, you have so many books, so many to-do lists. It's going to be harder to quiet your mind, because the real benefit comes when you become still, you know? And so I think it's easier if you go somewhere, honestly. You have to have a lot of discipline, which most people don't have, to do it on your own at home.
Yeah, I know I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great advice. And I'm conscious of the time. We have about 5 minutes left, but we do have some questions. Today's hack is actually that no is more powerful than yes. And to practice, a lot of times we're automatically saying yes, yes, yes to requests and to things. And then we end up with a huge to-do list or a huge list of commitments that are not aligned with what it is that we want in our life. And so today's life hack was, no is more powerful than yes, and to try and default to a no, and really consciously start saying yes instead of default yes. What do you think about that, and what do you recommend for someone who's who listens to a no? What do you recommend for someone who is about to give in and listen to the no instead of keeping on following their dream? So I think it's like,
well, that's
if you're in the habit of saying yes.
well, it kind of mixed two concepts. Like, one is you want to say yes to your dream. You want to say yes to your purpose, which means you have to say no to certain things. And if you're saying yes to everything, you're not saying yes to yourself ultimately. So it's good to be able to have clarity. I mean, even one of the most poignant, I saw so many times Dr. Ram would say no because he knew that wasn't his purpose. Even people would be offering him huge amounts of money or influence or things, and he knew it was a no because it wasn't aligned with who he was. There's a price you pay for everything, and he didn't want to pay that price of sacrificing his alignment with his integrity of who he was on the planet to accept even something that other people would have just snapped at in an instant. So yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Even on I think, was it last week we talked about, I want whoever I'm dating to say no. So that way when it's a hell yes, then I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. Like I want to trust someone's yes. And it's hard to trust their yes until I know they can say no. I at least want to know they can say no. And if it's a maybe, to me, that means no. Until it's a hell yes. Then it's like, game on, awesome.
100%. And if you haven't listened to last week's recording, I highly recommend that you go. First thing is www.hackmankind.com. Make sure you sign up. You will have a library on the back end. We're preparing an incredible website for you that's going to be launched, a new one. And every first 1,000 members are free. I know we're reaching an end. Unless you are, of course, a frontline responder, you will have access for life to Hack Mankind as a little small thank you. So www.hackmankind.com, and make sure that you listen to Clint's call from last week and the week before and the week before. Too much homework now. At least one call. See what resonates more with you, and also on our Facebook group where you have access to those calls as well. I'm so excited to hear more about Speak. I'm conscious of the time. And before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we all know that at noon, so in 10 minutes, we have our support angel calls for anyone who is on www.hackmankind. You will receive an email, and all you have to do is put in your email, and you'll receive an email that will give you access to those support calls. So Clint, any final thoughts before we wrap up, before we go?
I just want to thank those who are on live, ask such good questions, put things in the chat. I just love it. I just love being with you. And Jessica, you're so great to join with you every week. I want to hear more of your stories. I want to hear more of your insights as well. And I'm just grateful for Peter, for sure, for Adam, for creating Hack Mankind, this whole experience in which we can join together in this way. So cool. Their inspiration and following their heart, how they could be of service in a time where they saw, there's a lot of misinformation. How can we really serve people? How can we serve the front responders, the first responders? How can we serve the teachers and doctors and police officers? And how can we serve everyone? And at the same time, disseminate information that's very helpful, very relevant for right now. And so thank you, Peter. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone on the Hack Mankind team for what you're doing. And thank you all who are participating. You have wisdom inside of you that is really beyond. Everything you need is within you now. That's the truth. Everything you need is within you now. So just do those things with whatever discipline or whatever unraveling of any other attachments, so that way you can get to the point that you can see that truth about yourself, and then your whole life will change.
Oh, thank you so much, Clint. Thank you so, so much for being here. Thanks for tuning in. And for those, if we have missed any of your questions, I apologize. We will answer them for next week. Make sure that you are signed up on www.hackmankind. We do prioritize our VIP questions on the back end, on the backstage area, on the Zoom calls. So make sure www.hackmankind.com so your questions will get answered. Thank you so much, Clint. Have an incredible rest of your weekend for those tuning in, and you as well, Clint. I cannot wait to hear and to be on our call. It's always so much an amazing pleasure, and brings so much light to my life and those of others to be on this call with you. So thank you, thank you. Take care, everybody.
Namaste. See you next week.